So if you will see your topic 5.1, right, you would find that how we must have clarity over Indian villages, and I would say Indian villages and the sociological study. So first of all, it is so very crucial to understand why are we reading it. So what is the relevance of it? You would say that is India's population is predominantly agrarian, okay, right? Agrarian. And for our context, I would say we are going to have some history of village studies in India. Okay. Why it is important? Because we are mainly agricultural. Okay, we are agrarian economy, and definitely we are different from the world with respect to villages. What I am trying to tell that Indian villages are different in the world because of their characteristics. So we are unique. First of all, you would see that majorly all the villagers who are living, they are agriculturalist. They have big open spaces. They have traditional values. They would have some cattle around, and they are highly traditional, ritualistic in their lives. So Indian villages are having distinct characteristics of homogenization. We are very same. Okay. So you would see that definitely there's one more concept called rural cosmopolitanism. Rural cosmopolitanism is arguing against this viewpoint that no, even though we look very same, there are heterogeneous characteristics. But let's understand that okay, how we are very much related to each other and what makes Indian villages unique. We are having high level of social integration, if I'll quote Emile Durkheim's perspectives on it. We are highly integrated. We have strong sense of belongingness. Okay? So, first paragraph you would write, take the notes and write down on these elements that how Indian villages are integrated, how are we unique, etc., etc. Okay, all these parts you have to say. Okay, these parts you have to figure it out. Have you written? Can you just tell me the two paragraphs if you people have written this part? 2 lines, 3 lines, whatsoever you people have written. Okay, I'm just saying this. This part, this structure, you can support it with the writing of Simsi. Because Simsi is also having this opinion that how India's villages are unique in nature. Okay, so you will find caste division, you will find that social lives are running through the features of family, marriage, kinships. Okay, so we are vibrant in nature, right? And we are highly socially integrated. Now, sociological studies or anthropological studies have played significant role. Okay, so you would see sociological or anthropological studies are significant in showing the characteristics of Indian villages. Okay, so you have to see that there are various studies on Indian villages. Okay, why do we have to see it? See, because India's are truly presented by Indian villages. That is the first part. And we will see from 18th to 19th century onwards what happened. So British colonialists particularly, okay, such as Henry Maine, Sir Charles Metcalfe, okay, Thomas Munro, have got clear idea that since they need to control over India's diverse population, they must have ethnographic studies on Indian villages. And also, they always had this mindset to prove that how India's villages are like little republic. Little republic, self-sufficient, okay, changing, you can say non-changing, non-adaptive, stagnant. So that they can convince villagers, Indians, that they do not have any ambitions, or they are not going, they do not want to mingle with mainstream society, so let them be the way they are. Let them play the only role of providing raw materials to the world. So they did, all colonial people always had this mindset that they are not going to make any developments in this particular colony. Canada was their colony, Australia was their colony, even US initially. So Britishers did, England did have this understanding from the beginning. Why? Because of racism. That's because of racism. So they were okay in developing the West, but they were not okay in developing the East. Whether it was China or Japan or, Asian, they were not. And Middle East were powerful. They were always powerful. So वेस्ट ने हमेशा ईस्ट को अटैक करा है, मिडिल ईस्ट को अटैक नहीं भी करा है, नो वो कंट्रोल भी नहीं कर पा रहे थे. नाउ दे आर अटैकिंग अफगानिस्तान. इफ आई टॉक अबाउट द मिडाइवल फेज, ओके, so they have this mindset from the beginning that they need to corrupt, they need to ruin Indian villages. So what they did first, they did lot of village studies to convince us that we don't have any civilization. And what is the irony? We have got Harappan civilization, the world first town planning were there on our land. What you people have to remember, that Britishers or ethnographic studies, they have portrayed India as static, non-changing, non-adaptive. Write down this. Written? This one? Now, this was our literature. This was the book view presented to us by Britishers. Okay? Then we do have G.S. Ghure, M.N. Srinivas, A.R. Desai, Iravati Karve, Leela Dubey, S.C. Dubey, Subhash Mahapatra, D.N. Majumdar, L.P. Vidyarthi. We did have L.P. Vidyarthi. We did have Indian sociologists who have, we did have Indian sociologists who has given critical and true reflection on Indian villages. लिखेंगे ये जल्दी से. So you must be knowing in topic 4, we did discuss L.K. Krishna Iyer, S.C. Roy, L.K. Iyer and S.C. Roy. They both are accidental Indian anthropologists and Indian sociologists. So when Britishers were here in India, okay, L.K. Iyer, S.C. Roy, when these people were here, okay, and when they were being hired by Britishers, okay, so they were being hired by Britishers so that they would just give the data to them, like, the statistical information, so that they can rule them better. They didn't have any interest in solving their problems. They were not interested in uplifting them socially, or economically, or politically, or they were not interested. Now, when I said, why are you looking at me like this? You're thinking something else? Are you getting it or not? अच्छा, so you went back to history. कि अच्छा history में ऐसा हो रहा था, हाँ? So L.K. Iyer, S.C. Roy, they did conducted studies on tribals or Indian villages, and they have given anthropological data, but it was not critical in nature. Okay, so you can say it was data related, quantitative data. ठीक है? It was quantitative data. Now, in this regard, G.S. Ghure or Isbari UPSC did ask question in anthropology, G.S. Ghure Endological perspective. That's why I am saying, guys, you people have taken anthropology, you people have to see some topics from Indian society of sociology optional paper 2. Undoubtedly, you need to see. Okay? So, write down Govind Sada Shiv Ghure, who has used Indological perspective and by reflecting on Indological perspective, he has explained that how okay, we need to understand Indian society from the lenses of Indian sociology only. So Ghure was definitely writing with nationalist perspective. And he was always talking about social integration of Indian society. So what he did, he criticized William Jones' Asiatic Society for portraying stagnant image of Indian villages. So he said that, or Max Muller, etc. So he simply criticized that how Western can understand India tradition or values, beliefs, etc. So they cannot understand Indian social structure. What they are simply doing, they're interpreting Vedas or epics like Mahabharata, Ramayana, or Buddhism, Jain text, or even the Mughal text periods के time में जो भी books say, they are just interpreting, trying to do that. They don't have understanding of Indian values. Moreover, the kind of images they are giving, it is Orientalist in nature, it is biased in nature. Although not all Britishers were having same viewpoint, but yes, majority of thinkers have portrayed Indian villages as like this. And they all were talking about hierarchical character of Indian villages. They all are talking about hierarchical character, that as if the caste system in India is not giving any opportunities for upliftment. So what they did, they portrayed India's images, they portrayed India images as self-isolated communities, closed society, self-isolated, closed society, as if there will be no mobility. And they all were talking about social evils. So what G.S. Gure did, write down. Sorry. So what G.S. Gure did, G.S. Gure uses Indological perspectives and argue that we need to understand Indian society sociologically, critically. Okay. So what he said, that so far, although Inca interpretation was also a textual interpretation or book view. So it is not to ignore that G.S. Gure also has largely made his basis of sociological studies on book views, textual interpretation he followed, although he was a theoretical pluralist in nature. So he did not stick in one tradition of inquiries. Okay, so G.S. Gure said that okay, definitely we do have to understand India's social system better. Okay, so we must have proper understanding of India's social structure. Write down this. Okay, so he said that first of all, one should have critical analysis on Indian philosophical thought. Okay, so in Indian philosophical thought, you must know Nyaya and Vashishka philosophy, right? You must know Sankhya and yoga philosophy, Mimimsa and Vedas, Vedanta, right? And then this is the Astic school, then Gnostic school, Buddhism and Jainism and Charvaka. Okay, so first of all, you must understand textual interpretation. And while you are coming from Indian origin, and you are definitely must be having understanding of Sanskrit Vedas, and you're also practicing, so you will understand it better. Then he spoke about caste system also, but what he did sociological analysis on the caste system. Write down. So unlike just interpreting what Manusmriti, what Vedas, what is the book view on caste, he did sociological interpretation on caste. He listed features on the caste system. Okay, he actually given 6 features. You should be knowing this, but I'm just explaining. So first of all, he says that caste system is hierarchical. So you have hierarchy. It is so simple. So you have hierarchy. Then endogamous. Marriages will happen only within communities, and there will be a social restrictions. There will be a concept of purity and impurity. Okay, so he described caste features actually. And he said that yes, it is true that Indian villages are working on these structure, but it does not mean that they are stagnant in nature. So further, he has trained his student M.N. Srinivas, who have conducted exclusive field work. In his book, The Remembered Village, I will talk M.N. Srinivas later. Okay? So he had explained that, see, you do have to understand India's villages better. So he spoke caste system in a much more sociological manner. Is this clear? Then, another important part, he said that what this Herbert Hope Risley is talking about. With respect to that caste or it has come from the Aryan, that Aryan invasion theory. So you must be knowing, no, that how there is a belief that these Brahmins have come outside, Aryans, from Central Asia and all that Aryan invasion theory. So Herbert Hope Risley, because he is the first anthropologists who have conducted racial classification of India's population. Remember? See your notes. Herbert Hope Risley have given some classification: Irano-Turkian, Mongolian, Dravidian. See your notes. Where is Herbert Hope Risley classification? Tell me that. So what he did, Herbert Hope Risley have got his anthropometric measurements to classify Indians, right? So he did cephalic index, he got nasal index, nasal orbito index, so the line between your nose and your eyes, nasal orbito index, and also your stature. And he has also used some, somatoscopic features also, like hair, skin color, right? And then he has classified Indian population What are they? You people have not written in your notes. Indo-Iranian, then Turkian, Mongoloid, okay, then Dravidian. So he has actually classified India's population on the basis of races. And Risley also made a very controversial statement that that the inhabitant, what is Aryan debate? हाँ, so okay, that the Aryans were outsiders. ठीक है, इतना हम simple समझते हैं. But as a student of UPSC, you should be knowing this debate, in depth. Okay, so according to G.S. Gure, let me speak. Let me speak. Okay, आप ही बोलो पहले. बोलो बोलो. Because see, as you know, we people are student of anthropology. We know that we do not have any archaeological evidences to support that, that we were from the Negrito race and this and that. So we do have Ramapithecus, Shavapithecus debate and all. So Aryan invasion theory, let's just see what G.S. Gure has opinion on that. So G.S. Gure says that, okay, this Aryan invasion theory is partially correct for the north. But when the Aryans have came, we did have dasas in India, right? So actually what happened? So, so we did have, if I'll talk about the medieval, okay, medieval phase, if I'll talk about here, then this is your Asia part. So you were saying that, okay, we can say this Aryan invasion theory is partially correct for your northern part, that's the Himalayan part. So it can be partially true. But when these people have come up, and by the way, what do you know about the Aryans? Aryans mean those who are coming from outside. And Aryans did not come in one phases. They have been coming towards Indian subcontinent in phases, right? Migrations were always there. ऐसा थोड़ी ना है कि माइग्रेशन कभी नहीं था. Migration were always there. So Aryans were the one who were coming out from outside. So G.S. Gure का कहना था that okay, even if I'll see Herbert Risley का classification, because definitely if you see the northern people का racial features, they look like Asian, West Central Asian. Their features, their nose are pinpointed. They are fair in nature, sex. So they do. You must be seeing culture, food habits, So they are like white, you can say white skinned people. Right? So racially you can say that yes, they're Kashmiri people, ऊपर के जितने भी northern के हैं, Himalayas के वो मिलते हैं कहीं ना कहीं. Okay, so he was saying that although it can be true for the north, but let's just have very much clarity that when these people have come, we did have indigenous race as well. That is Australite race. Okay, dark-skinned people were living. So what happened when these people have come up? There was a conflict. They went into the extreme locations. They could not win. Either they become their slaves. Okay, they started working for them, or they hide themselves in forest. But they were inhabitants. They were indigenous inhabitants, according to G.S. Gure. Okay, is this clear? Please write down this. In your own words, whatsoever I have just explained, I'm giving you 5 minutes. It's important. And somewhere down, you please write down that Aryan invasion theory में you should be having at least 250 to 300 words ka your notes for GS. So I think that you now got the clarity how GS Gure have tried to attack Western opinion as much as he can with his sociological insights, right? Now, with respect to tribes, again, Marian Ilwin said that the tribal communities in India must be locked in their forest area so that we can save their indigenous culture, and we must make national park. So it's just like you create national park and let this tribal peoples live there. Okay, as if that they are like animals who are living in zoo. This was an articulation made by G.S. Gure that tribal peoples are very integral part of our Indian society, and Britishers have some fancies over Indian culture and tribals, so they want Indian tribals to live in national parks so that they can create and see them like they are visiting museum. Okay, and national national development cannot happen if we cannot integrate tribals. This was a major argument by G.S. Gure. And G.S. Gure said that tribals are backward Hindus. And we must have integration of tribals into mainstream society. So G.S. Gure was having integrationist approach, which was later on followed by Jawaharlal Nehru as well. That we cannot ignore them just because they have some exotic cultures, traditions, and we do have to do some arrangements. We do have fifth and sixth schedule so that we can also protect them, their livelihood, etc. Okay, so that is the important shift, right, which was now giving or coming out of Indian anthropologists such as G.S. Gure. Written? Okay, please write down this because it is very important. You might can get a question. Elvin and G.S. Guri debate on tribal communities. So you people have to make your answers at least for 250 words. on this particular topic. Okay, so in this way, G.S. Gure's work is phenomenal in giving and enlightening us that how Indian society were not stagnant at all. They were not self-sufficient. They were not like little republics. There were lot many, other aspects to have studies on. Okay, and it was dynamic in nature. So you would see that the contribution of G.S. Gure is huge. Now, another sociologist, M.N. Srinivas, who was student of G.S. Gure only and got his anthropological training from Redcliffe Brown, from Oxford University, he said that India's villages or Indian society were always dynamic in nature. Okay? So he argues that we need to have a shift from book view to field view. Okay, book view to the field view. He argues that India is changing, okay, and the forces of modernization and westernization is changing India's tradition. This was his first strong argument. Mysore Narasimhachar Srinivas Mysore Narasimhachar Srinivas have brought different methodologies and concepts to prove against colonial narratives. That India is not little republic, okay, or self-sufficient, or non-adaptive. Okay, and Mysore Narasimhachar was definitely had a lot of good insights, and he's explained that see, India is vibrant, India is changing, and it's not static. So what made Srinivas different from G.S. Gure? He has proved it. Exactly. He has conducted field work. He has given empirical evidences. Okay, excellent guys. अब आप लोगों को एंथ्रो अच्छी आ रही है. Okay, Huma ma'am good, Huma ma'am good, but very nice, very nice. क्योंकि अगर आपने ये वाला आंसर दे दिया, both of you and online students, so that means that now you are understanding. Okay, because what anthropologists have always argued, if you remember evolution wala theory, what evolutionists were saying that there is no proof. They were being criticized, no, that there is no empirical evidences. So if you can't prove anything, that means it's not a fact, it's an illusion. Illusion में तो मैं रानी, मैं prime minister, right? So M.N. Srinivas ने कहा that how whatsoever you are portraying India, India is not that. Okay, and to prove this, he had conducted field work. Okay. Foods of South Indians. And very phenomenal work we have. I think 1979, if I'm not wrong. But definitely the book name is Remembered Village. Okay. And then there is Religion and Society. Modernization of Indian Tradition. These are some of the work of Srinivas, where he has explained, see, India is changing. Now, the first opinion was made by Colonial that how India is a closed system, right? So let's analyze this first. ये सब आपकी बुक्स में है, पीपीटीज में है, so don't worry, I'm writing in a very rough manner, so you people can get Indian society better. Why am I doing this? Because as I have said that strategy matters in anthropology a lot. So topic 3, topic 5 is actually going to make a lot of base for your GS paper. Indian society ka. Right? So if once you have clarity over this, okay, you will do really good in paper GS1 with respect to problems of Indian society. And definitely, since you people have opted anthropology, you are reading Indian sociology only, so you are going to reflect in personality test as well. Okay, so you just have to remember, if a question is being on rural India, you can, quote G.S. Gure, M.N. Srinivas and all. It does matter even in your personality test. You just can start your answer by quoting some thinkers. Now, let's just say what happened. Britishers have always studied India and then they were just showing that we are very close society. Okay. Now, what is the closed society? In order to understand closed society, you please remember your 2.4 social mobility and social stratification. Yeah. So social stratification is division. Okay. Social stratification is division. I have divided society. Now, when I am saying social mobility, movement. Now, what Britishers have said that the movement among this strata is close. समझ में आ रहा है? Good. Good kids. प्यारे बच्चे हैं, समझ पा रहे हैं, मेरा नाम रोशन करोगे. So why strata is closed? Although it is correct, if we'll see the scriptures. What are scriptures, Parul? तुम क्यों बता रही? Written text, good. Okay, closed society. Although, if we'll see the scriptures, okay, so yes, this is what we see. This is what we see. But as a sociologist, as a socio-cultural anthropologist, I would tell you, and you also have studied now a lot many theories. Just talk about Levi Strauss, talk also about Edmund Leach, okay, and Derrida. What these people were saying, there is a huge gap between apparent and reality. And deconstruction, UPSC ने क्वेश्चन ही आपसे deconstruction में पूछा है. If I would tell you how you can get good marks, be unique. UPSC did ask in your postmodernist thinker Jacques Derrida on deconstruction. You can say Jacques Derrida deconstruction theory can can be analyzed by quoting caste system in India. So if you will see how British colonialists have portrayed that India's society is closed, because this is what text is talking, but reality is that there is a movement in all the textbook. So there is a gap between what is there in book preaching and practicing. So illusion versus reality, you keep on saying, ma'am, I like you, I will, you are doing this and that, but in the end, in the backward, you are saying, Arey yaar, kya ho raha hai? I'm just saying this is how 90% of humans are. I'm telling you this. 10% maybe, अगर वो अंदर से religious है, spiritual है, then only they would, they would be very, you can say, to the point, very upfront. They will have lot many enemies. Their talks will always going to be manipulated, right? How? Because they know that they will not lie. But it is not like that. There's apparent realities. And it would be again say very wrong to say that no human are doing it. Even I do also. We all do manipulations. This is human nature. As a student of anthropology, we know that we are not trained, no? Biologically, we are trained to go for some emotions. So by default, we are animals. Carl Linnaeus have put into us which category? Animal category. जानवर हैं हम यार. जानवर हैं. So we will do manipulations. Okay. So all the scriptures is saying something which is actually not very true in reality. So in scriptures, we will see that movement is restricted. But M. N. Srinivas has proved that no, movement is very much possible. But the concept of Sanskritization, which we are going to read exclusively in 5.3. Then further, M. N. Srinivas has given the concept of dominant caste, and yes, ये भी आपके यूपीएससी में, आंथ्रो में और सोशो में दोनों में आ चुका है. Dominant caste. Okay, so Sanskritization is a process in which lower segments of caste system emulate the lifestyles, thoughts of upper caste, and they from generations to generations they do change their status. So M. N. Srinivas is simply saying that there is the social interaction, okay, and there is movement. And by dominant caste, he has shown that how dominant caste is like, if you go to some villages, you would see the strength of Yadavs. They're politically very strong. Even in their areas, if we have a hamlet of Brahmins, you would see that they would not be very superior, because it is Yadavs who are numerically, more in strength, and they are dominant, and they have political connections. Okay, and this is a reality again. So he is saying that India is adaptive because of modernization, because of secularization. That rigidity of the caste system in functioning is got lessened. It is not that the way it used to happen earlier. But yes, definitely, if I'll quote D.P. Mukherjee, so Durajit Prasad Mukherjee, again, you can write D.P. Mukherjee. So D.P. Mukherjee have quoted this, that how India's culture is living tradition. You might can get, it is very important in sociology, you might get in anthro. So India's traditions are living tradition. It means that nothing is going to finish or vanish. So the notion of the caste system and the hierarchy and etc. is like, following from one generation to next. So caste is not going to fade away, even in the modern day society. And we know that how caste and politics works together. Okay. So these are the concepts you can get questions on. Then we have Air Desai, another sociologist, and here's the one who spoke about real challenges of Indian villages. Conflict or Marxist perspective he has used, and explained that how even after getting independence, it was peasants which were struggling, the poor or the laborers, bonded laborers, they were struggling, and even today they are struggling. So he has written a very good work, mind-blowing work, Social Background of Indian Nationalism. Social Background of Indian Nationalism, where he has argued that Indian nationalism needs to be analyzed in some phases. Pre-British, British, colonial, post-colonial phase. And then you would realize that for very long, sociology and anthropology were only reflecting on caste, tradition, family, marriages, as if the problems of villagers and particularly peasant communities or the tribal communities or the rural poor do not exist. So he was writing by using Marxist perspective, and he argued that there cannot be any development until unless we are not improvising the lives of rurals. Is this clear? Kindly write down. समझ में आ रहा है? So we can see that Indian villages were always important. Now after Air Desai, we do have SC Dubey, who worked for independent government India after independence, and he argues that we can have development by using community development program. Okay, so we need to work on villages and we need to systematically develop. You would be going to get that rural appraisal and all that. Initially अभी आपको आएगा tribals के बारे में जब बात करेंगे. So S.A. Dubey argues that we can have development by keeping and scrutinizing what are real rural problems. So there is now a shift. Okay, earlier it was a Vedic interpretation on the village studies and to understand villagers. Then we have got the field work, and then now today we are having action anthropology. What is action anthropology? Where we are not only analyzing and reading, but we are also participating, suggesting. So write down that. So now the villages which we are now studying, it is with the viewpoint of solving the problems. And community development programs and sociologists like S.C. Dubey, okay, they have worked immensely in having 73rd amendment. Okay, what is 73rd amendment? Panchayati, local government na, but in rural, right? When the urban. So अब ये पूरा आपको evolution पता होना चाहिए, because I am talking about village studies. So this is what student of UPSC should know. If I am talking about rural development, then you should talk about 73rd Amendment Act as well. And before that, then you should also know that how it got evolved, how Rajiv Gandhi have played, because it did not come just one go, no. So there was always policy makers who were suggesting, doing and conducting studies on that. Is this now clear, all of you? Okay, now I'm having paying a little bit. I'll take a break and then we'll continue on this, on the village studies. Okay. Meanwhile, you people can take a break, but okay, do one thing. You can take 2-3 minutes ka break and then write on the summary whatsoever I have given explanation to. Just a summary, because see, what matter is what you are writing in your mains. So far, I have explained so many things. Notes are there in front of you, and I can bet you that if I'll ask you write a summary on Indian villages, you will not be able to write a coherent paragraph. You can try, although you know it's very important to have lot of practices. Let's just have a reality check. We can crack this exam if we are having, you know, excellent writing skills. So I would say after 3 to 4 minutes, take 10 minutes to write summary so far whatsoever I've explained. Okay, chaliye. Then I will come and I'll listen what you people are writing. Both three of you, like you know, all of online aspirants also and offline aspirants too. Written? Yeah. Indian villages are integrated and unique. Okay. As per Simpson. Simsay. Okay. Use incorrect. Don't use wrong. Use incorrect. Better vocabulary. Also make difference in your answers. Just a moment. Now add one line. That is why they have written literature in which they have proved India as static and not changing. One more line, add. So they have produced literature which have proved by, and they have examined various ancient books to prove that they are not changing. Okay, and then you will bring GS Guru. Excellent. Very good. Yes. हाँ.
According to Britishers, Indian development is a static and not adaptive, but Indian sociologists such as B.S. Bode, M.S. Srinivas, S.C. Dubey, D.H. A.R. Desai, and Vidyati, each one gave their opinion and conducted studies and gave the true reflection of Indian villages. Anthropologists have studied the role of caste system with its hierarchies, relationship, dynamics of kinship, documented the cultural values, local practices, and about the self-sufficiencies for both production and consumption.
Okay. All right. So far, I think good. फिर भी अच्छा लिखा है. अब लिखना तो start कर दिया आपने. Online aspirant, I will check it of yours later on. Let's now continue on this. So what we have learned that how Indian villages are changing. Okay. So India का जो villages है that are changing and it is not the way it has been portrayed to us. Okay. तो वो हमने इसमें किया. Now what else we have to see here? So when you will be getting this PDF, you would make sure that you should know the definition of Indian villages. Okay, let me just make you write. Write down the definition of Indian villages because sometimes they ask you define village and then you need to just give opinions like that. So write down the term village refers to a small area with a small population which follows agriculture not only as an occupation but also as a way of life. Full stop. Generally, comma, a village community may be defined as a group of people living in a definite geographical area, comma, characterized by consciousness of sameness, comma, common lifestyle, consciousness of homogeneity, common lifestyle, and various intensive social interactions. Okay? Then you will just write down all the thinkers' names on the village studies. One thing तो you would be reading अभी Robert Redfield. लिखो Robert Redfield, Malcolm Marriott. इनका काम तो हमको पढ़ना ही है. So you might can get a question on book view, field view. लिखो ये सारे points. You should be clear. Book view on village studies and other studies. And please write down some village studies like Remembered Village Pointers by M. N. Srinivas, 1976. Malcolm Marriott, Studies in the Little Community. Now write on Milton Singer and Malcolm Marriott together, Little and Great Traditions, which we are going to discuss in 5.3. Then S.C. Dubey, Indian Village. 1958. Then write down Homo hierarchus, the caste and its implication by Louis Dumont. Then write down Social Condition in India by G.S. Gure. He has reflected on caste only. Then Caste and Race in India by G.S. Gure. Caste and Race in India by G.S. Gure. Next, Caste, Class and Power, Changing Patterns of Stratification in Tanjore Village, study by Andre Betaille. Write down Village Life in Northern India. These all are case studies, and case studies are so integral in anthropology by Oscar Lewis. Rural India in Transition by Air Desai. The Village Community in India by Gilbert Slater. The Village Community in India by Gilbert, Gilbert Slater. Gilbert Slater. Land and Labor in a Deccan Village by Harold Munn. Next, Tepzotien, a Mexican village, hyphen a study in folk life. Okay, now all the case studies are mentioned in the, I would say, in my document. You will have to read it out and make your answers. Apart from this, you can do little bit of your research, because there are lot many studies on villages. Whatsoever I have given so far, they are some important one. So you do have to prepare your answers on it. Okay? Clear? All right. Then the next topic is on Indian social system. All right. I'll just come in a moment. There is some issue. I'll just come. यहाँ पे technical issue लग रहा है. Let me just come in a while. Okay, now please write down Indian social system. Indian villages as seen as or is viewed as a social system. A social system refers to interconnected, interrelated bodies. India is definitely an ancient civilization that goes back to the IVC, which flourished during the 3rd millennium BC. Then we have got Vedic period, and we know that how we have archaeological facts which shows how rural and urban centers have coexisted in India. Urban centers have coexisted in India. So rural, urban and tribal centers have interdependence with each other. Especially in the spheres of economy, urban-ward migrations, dependence on village products, how our life is very much controlled by traditions, etc. Okay? So, India is like a social system in which our rituals, our Vedas is telling how one's life would be through the concept of caste system or the Rina philosophy or the Purushotas. So we can see there is an interconnection. Just write on. So we can see that there is an interconnection There's an interconnection in Indian society among economical, political, ritual spheres. All right, now one more line. As per Talcott Parson, cultural values establishes social institutions. And these social institutions further creates a social system. Okay? So, Indians' cultural values, write down. So, India's cultural values have created religion as a social institutions which is based on Vedas, and through the Manusmriti, through the works of Manusmriti, the political or the power structures of Indian society is also stemming out of religious textbook, that is the caste system, and the economical spheres, that which group would do which occupation, is also originating from religious textbook. This signifies that Indian society works like a system in which different parts are working together in the functioning of society. Are working together society. Is this now clear? This one? India as a social system, you can just write down like this, okay? And then there is a content which you people can write it down. There was one very important part, okay? Write down microcosm of caste society as a box that you can get. Microcosm, it's a paragraph. Microcosm of caste society, which says that how Indian society or the village is multi-caste. And then also you can get a question on Jajmani system. I'm just giving you pointers, right, on which you people can get the question. And then factionalism. This is all happening in villages, okay, in Indian society. You want me to give you little dictation on this? Yeah. So there will be a microcosm of caste society, Jajmani as a system of exchange. You can get a question also on village solidarity. Factionalism is like how every village is like, divided on little, like, factions such as economic, kinships, political parts. Okay. And then you can get a question on that, importance of village studies and this. Okay. which I have just explained. एक लिखो एक work revisiting the rural in 21st century India by Surinder S. Jotka, because S. Jotka is contemporary socio-cultural anthropologist or sociologist who are reflecting heavily on Indian villages. The rural in 21st century India. S. Jotka. Okay. So now we have completed the first subtopic. Now write down the second subtopic. Traditional and changing patterns of settlements, intercaste relations in Indian village. So change in village structure. Write down the changes in the structure. So Indian tradition, or you can say Indian villages, are always been changing. However, after independence, the power structure plays an important role in the growth and development. Therefore, policymaker, Indian leaders were always particular in framing provisions, schemes, so that India's settlement or the pattern structures get evolved and progressed. Just write down like this, अपने आप लिख लो, that after independence, जो framers थे, the Indian framers, constitutional makers, they all wanted India villages to develop, progress. तो इन लोगों ने policies पे different schemes like Magnera, मनरेगा, इन सब के ऊपर focus किया. ये खुद से लिख लो. I'm giving you 2 minutes. Next point. So recently we know that how Panchayati Raj system came to existence. So you might can get a question on Panchayati Raj system. Panchayati Raj system which came into existence, it is a sequel to the Balwant Rai Mehta Committee recommendation. So please do write down this. Balwant Rai Mehta Committee recommendations. So Balwant Rai Mehta Committee were always act as a landmark whenever we are talking about the changes in the villages. Okay, so they have the two in objectives. Balwant Rai Mehta Committee had two objectives. One is democratic decentralization and local participation in the planned development programs of the rural communities. Okay, so we can see that now people or the policymakers wanted to have local participation. Okay, and then you can just tell analysis of Panchayati Raj system is उसने कुछ improvisation किया कि नहीं, how young skilled and educated person living there at village level, how they how we have built rural leadership. Do write down all this part. Then you should talk on the changes in educational structures of villages. Have we got any changes, okay, on the education? So you should talk about national policy on education, okay, particularly in rural areas. You need to see that how government is making policies, and you need to evaluate how many schools have got started, You should be knowing 1955 में क्या रहा, dropout rate क्या है. Okay, then you should also reflect on changing intercaste relations. Then changing conditions of women. Changing family structure in villages. How family structure is changing in India, in rural India? It's now disintegrating even in the villages. Then talk about agrarian relations in Indian villages. So now we can see that we are having non-form, right? Or non-form employment opportunities are there. Increasing commercialization of agriculture is there. Increasing tendency of households to leave agricultural land. Increasing indebtedness. Farmer suicides. Okay, so we know that land had always been an important source for seeing the relations. Okay, so because we are agricultural land, and then what is individual's relation with the land. Okay, so when Britishers have come up, they have got the permanent settlement system by Lord Cornwallis. Then we have got Rewtwari, Munro, and then Mahavari. So this also have changed the relations of individuals with their land. And then the evolution of the zamindari system. So that was the pre-independence. But after independence, now we know that how even the government has changed the relations. Okay, then you should be knowing about pattern of land ownership and operation. Then structure of tenancy relations. Then role of caste struggles in agrarian relations. Then one more part, concept of peasant society and peasant culture. Then there is one topic on this, Robert Redfield, 1941. Folk urban continuum. FOLK, folk urban continuum. And also refer air desai of whensoever we are talking about the peasants. Then there will be another topic, impact of globalization on Indian villages. So globalization impact on India is like a two sword, like phases of the two sword. It's like it was helpful, but also it has changed its traditions, customs. Okay, so we have got the development, but at the same time, it is to say that we also have got, yeah, we have loses our values of traditions, etc. Okay, now I'm uploading this content. 5.1 का content upload हो गया था. Just check it. Otherwise, I'll leave it tomorrow. Just check it if it is not. 5.1 I think मैंने किया था. कर देती हूँ, काम करती हूँ फिर से. Easy है 5.1 now. 5.1 भी है? नो? आई थिंक मैंने करा तो होगा, एक बार यू विल सी. ओके, अब सैटरडे में कॉपी सारी चेक होगी. नहीं, सैटरडे से पहले जो टेस्ट हुआ है, आई वुड बी गिविंग गुड एनालिसिस ऑन दैट, डोंट वरी. Now you will can check, okay? In case it is not there, then I will give it. Okay, so I hope you got the clarity on 5.1. Tomorrow, very quickly, we'll talk more on the social changes, exogenous, endogenous changes, and then finally we are done with Indian sociology as well. And now I don't think so that we are going to take a lot of time. Only 3-4 days will be there to complete your tribal anthropology. Okay? And then tribal anthropology is done. Biological anthropology we are already completing on Saturday, Sunday. Now we are left with very few topics. I believe by next week, by next week, your paper will be fully finished और हमने पेपर 2 के भी बहुत सारे टॉपिक्स कवर अप कर लिए होंगे. पेपर 1 की सॉरी. ओके ओके, चलिए, थैंक यू.